Hello and welcome, guys. We are here for round 2 with Esper Draw-Go version 2. Only some slight changes, and if you're interested in the details of this deck list, then check out match 1. That's where I talk a little bit about the changes that were made. But we are here to dive back into the league and see if we can manage to get a win this time. We unfortunately lost round 1 to a blue-red, blue moon strategy, and hopefully we can pick up the win here. So I will see you guys in the game. Alright, we have our match. Let's get this started. And we're on the play, that's great. We have a remand, that's great. Remand on the play is a very nice feeling. We do have 2 tap lands here, but I think the way that our curve is here, we'll probably be able to make do, so Supreme Verdict, we'll need another white source to get that one working, but I think that we can manage that. Playing against an island deck, huh? Interesting. I don't know if there's a need to hold up the remand here. I guess our opponent could cast a Baral or Electromancer if they're on Storm, in which case we would want to respond, potentially. We can also cast Esper Charm on turn 3 by just playing out the Swamp, so I'm inclined to go ahead and just play an untap land and pass here. It may not be necessary, but... And against a blue deck, we're unlikely to cycle Shark Typhoon for 0. We might as well get something out of it. At least a little 1/1 that can trade with an opponent's Snapcaster Mage, at the very least. We do see a Cascade Bluffs. So this is likely to be some sort of Kiki deck, I would think. That's what Cascade Bluffs usually indicates. Here, I think I'm inclined to just go ahead and play the Tar Pit out and pass it back. Get our tap lands out of the way. We don't need to rush into casting this Esper Charm, I don't think. Not at the moment, at least. Ah, okay. They scry the card to the top. Interesting. I didn't pay attention to the first off, but eh. It's unlikely to be relevant. Yep, they pass it back. Alright. We could represent Cryptic Command by playing either Swamp or Field of Ruin, so I guess we want to get the Field of Ruin out here so we can fetch for a basic Plains, perhaps, in case our opponent is playing a version of Kiki that does have access to Blood Moon. So, I think the most recent Kiki lists are playing a mana base that actually contains very few actual islands, so they can play their own boils in the sideboard. So, I'm not really expecting Blood Moon here, but it's still possible. Archmage's Charm to draw 2. I think we can allow this. Let's see if our opponent hits their 4th land drop here. They do, and it is a pathway land. This is the red-blue pathway land. So that does indicate to me that we don't really need to worry about Blood Moon here. I think I'm inclined to just go ahead and cycle Shark Typhoon. I think that's a fine use of our mana. We don't know exactly what this Esper Charm is going to be doing yet. And we can always Esper Charm this upcoming turn while still holding up Remand, so a 2/2 is fine with me. It's a meaningful clock, but it also will trade with something like a Pestermite or a Snapcaster Mage. If our opponent has a Deceiver Exarch, then we can just path it, or just allow ourselves to be brick-walled by it for a while. And I am going to play the Swamp here so that we can Esper Charm while still holding up Remand here, I think. I don't know if this version of Kiki plays any Planeswalkers in the main board. It's possible they have, like, Jace the Mind Sculptor, but I'm not sure. I'm kind of inclined to look up a list for the Kiki deck here, but I don't know if it's going to be necessary. Let's go for the card draw, I think. Now, remanding the Esper Charm. That's fine, I guess. We'll save our Spell Snare for our Snapcaster Mage. Seems more prudent. Let's get the Flooded Strand out there in case we do want to fetch for basic planes, but in all likelihood, we'll just be getting a tapped Shockland here. And our next fetch can line up a Mystic Sanctuary, so... Opponent's casting a 3-drop. Do we want to remand it? If it's one of those, creatures... Let's see. Do we care about this? I don't think that we care about the Archmage's Charm, so let's let it go. I mean, we're hitting our land drops naturally. Our opponent is drawing all the cards with their, things like Archmage's Charm and whatnot. Let's pick this, Cascade Bluffs out of play. Again, we're just trying to get some mana fixing here. Now we will be even closer to making our Mystic Sanctuary live. I don't think our opponent has anything like Desolate Lighthouse, but even if they do, it's only a 1-of, and we still have 2 Field of Ruins left in the deck, so probably not too much of a problem. If we do draw another Field of Ruin, then I imagine we'll hold on to that one in case they do have a Cascade Bluff. Alright, well now we have something to slam, so we could start getting into a fight this upcoming turn. If they want to do anything about our Esper Charm, we could untap and slam Teferi. Are they finally going to commit a creature? No, it's Archmage's Charm again. Let's allow this. We'd rather fight on their turn, so they have to tap their mana in their main phase. So if they want to do something here, then it will potentially cost them. We could still be weak to a Force of Negation. Crackling Drake. That one's vaguely annoying, but yeah, let's just go ahead and remand this. I don't see a reason not to. Spell Snare, the remand. Well, we can draw 2 with Esper Charm and see if we hit a 2-mana counterspell. We probably want to draw 2 with this Esper Charm anyways, so yeah, let's just try this. If our opponent fights over it too much, then we get to cast this Teferi, so we always have a verdict or path to deal with this Crackling Drake. And now that we have a second path, I feel very strongly that just pathing this Crackling Drake is just fine. Our opponent's likely holding up a remand here, which we can punch through with our Spell Snare to get this Teferi into play. That seems like a reasonable thing to do. We fetch and path this Drake straight away. I'm not even opposed to fetch shocking a Hallowed Fountain here. That way we can still set up our Mystic Sanctuary. Yeah, let's go ahead and use this path now. I don't see a real reason not to. It costs us 3 life, but so far we're doing pretty good on life. Haven't lost any life this game, except for the 3 that we just took, so... Path goes through. Fantastic. We'll leave our Delta for Mystic Sanctuary purposes. And let's just slam Teferi, I do think. Remand, meet Spell Snare. Let's hope our opponent doesn't have Force of Negation. This is the best window for our Teferi anyways, so... And it does go through. We'll draw. Play a Tar Pit. Now we have a second Path to Exile, so we can't just get punked out by something crazy like Deceiver into Kiki, which they can combo off in 1 turn, but let's see, they have 5, 6, 7. So 1 more land, and they would be able to cast Deceiver, untap Kiki, and go off. And even so, we, with a single Path to Exile, would be able to deal with that pretty easily, so I wonder if they're going for the Snap Bolt on our Teferi here, and they have like a bolt in hand. Looks like that might be the case. That's kind of unfortunate, since we can't protect our Teferi. At least it drew us a card, and then took the bolt from their graveyard, and a card from their hand, most likely. I guess we can Esper Charm in response to this, to see if we draw a Force of Negation. I don't really think it's worth it, though. We'd rather get Mystic Sanctuary with this fetch land, so... yeah, let's just untap. I don't think our opponent is going to overcommit into the Supreme Verdict, and I think right now is the least dangerous time to cast a Supreme Verdict, so let's just go ahead and get the Snapcaster off the battlefield and pass it back. We do have access to Path plus Push with Revolt on our Delta, since we can fetch the second Hallowed Fountain, so... Alright, we'll just untap. Alright, Logic Knot is good. Well, since our opponent used 3 total copies of Lightning Bolt, even though they flashed back one, it's going to be difficult for them to bolt us out of the game here, especially since we've been taking so little damage. So we probably don't need to worry too much about that. Go for the card draw here, trying to find a game ender. See if they want to fight over this. If they cryptic it, I think we're probably... Okay, they didn't do anything about it. Let's get Mystic Sanctuary and set this back up for this upcoming turn. Guarantee that we have a good draw. Admittedly, I'd rather be Sanctuarying back an Archmage's Charm, but that way we'd have double protection against a Planeswalker or something, but we'll have to settle for the next best thing. I think we just have to get some more stuff going here. We'll play Strand for access to basic planes, and we could clock with a Tar Pit. That would leave us with 5 mana, which is enough to Logic Knot plus Charm, or Logic Knot and cast all of our removal spells. I suppose we lose our Charm to a Mana Leak if we do that. We can wait 1 turn, I think, on clocking with a Tar Pit. I'd rather get the fate of this Esper Charm secured before we consider going on the attack here. Don't want to make our opponent's Mana Leak useful. Minamo means that they can play around removal spell a little bit more, untapping a Kiki in response. Let's just draw 2 cards here. Again, trying to find more interaction, more game ender stuff. No reason to attack our opponent's hand when we need a couple of counterspells to protect ourselves. Another land out there and in the open. Let's go ahead and activate a Tar Pit. They bolt it. That's fine. That just is even more argument to the fact that we will most likely not be losing to Snap Bolts this game. And yeah, this is looking pretty good. We have our 3 man lands in play to finish this game as we go longer here. We've got tons of removal spells, a couple counter spells to insulate us against a potential Jace or something like that, and Esper Charm to continue to get ahead. I think this is exactly what we're looking for. I'm not sure if we're going to be casting this Esper Charm anytime soon. Like, we could do it at this upcoming instep here, but we don't know if we want to drain their hand or draw more cards. I suppose if we kept drawing with Esper Charm, we could play a land off of it, but... I'm kind of inclined to go ahead and attack their hand here. They didn't bolt our Tar Pit, which means they're probably holding relevant cards, and I'd rather just get some of this mana out of the way. If we don't draw a land, then this means that we'll be able to keep all 7 cards in our hand without having to discard. They discard Spiral, Canal, and Spell Snare. Well, that's not currently super impactful, but at the very least, we'll be able to resolve a Snapcaster Mage going late that otherwise would not have resolved. Let's just go ahead and get a Hallowed Fountain here. Still have 1 fetch in play for Revolting Fatal Push, so 2 fetches in play for Revolting Fatal Push. Let's go at it again with Tar Pit. Clock. And this is why the manlands are so important in this deck, and why you really can't afford to play without manlands like Tar Pit and Colonnade and Esper, is because right now you're seeing the utility of them and the fact that we're able to end this game despite being entirely reactive simply because our lands also happen to clock our opponent. So those blue-white decks that have cut Colonnade entirely, they can only do so because they really have threats that end the game. Some of them play things like Stoneforge Mystic and that kind of thing, and we don't want to be relying on just our Planeswalkers and Shark Typhoons because, as we've already seen in this very game, a 5-mana Teferi, while in theory can end the game, it is something that our opponent can interact with, and the manlands are harder to interact with. Since we're making every single land drop here pretty much, like, the manlands are really free for us to play, so... yeah, let's just do that again, I guess. I'm thinking that maybe... I'm not going to play around Blood Moon. I was going to say maybe we shouldn't be tapping all of our basic lands to be activating Tar Pit, but I'm not playing around Blood Moon. I'm just not. So, we do see a bunch of basic islands from our opponent, so I guess it's not impossible that they could be playing a Deceiver Exarch. We don't want to counter this. We definitely want to use a removal spell on it, rather. I think we can afford to just go ahead and cast this push now, since we're going to be losing this mana anyways, so let's fetch. Get a Watery Grave tapped here. And go ahead and push this Exarch. We want to use the push here, not only because our Tar Pit will allow us to use the mana from it but also because our Path to Exile is less conditional going late, it'll always hit an Exarch or Kiki whenever we need it to. That is not the case with Fatal Push. More Archmage's Charms is good. Let's continue to do the Tar Pit thing. Activate. Combat. And of course, we're using Tar Pit here because it's a smaller mana investment. It lets us hold up more interaction. Again, we're not countering the Deceiver Exarch. I am debating whether or not we push this one as well. I think we possibly do, but to be honest, I don't want to tap out too low and lose to Kiki, but I guess it's pretty free here in all honesty, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. Make the same play as last turn. Get our last Watery Grave in play. Let's see, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we let this enter tap, that's enough to Path plus double Charm, or double Path, not, and Charm, so I think it's fine to let this enter tap. And, repeat of last turn. Keep it coming. And we'll pass it back. Soon enough, we'll have enough mana to start clocking with Colonnade instead, so... Not really sure what our opponent can do to win the game here. I suppose a Planeswalker plus double Counterspell would be a little problematic, so for that reason, maybe we don't start activating Colonnade just yet. Once we hit one more land so we can hold up Project Knot and double Archmage's Charm, then maybe it's fine, but up until that point, let's just keep clocking with Tar Pit. It's a slower clock, but ensures that we have some safety, so... Deceiver Exarch again. A Valakut Awakening. That's probably fine, I guess. Our opponent is sculpting their hand. I didn't check last time, but I wonder if it tells us how many cards they put on the bottom. They drew 4 cards, so they cycled their whole hand. They're looking for these bolts to deal with this Tar Pit, I guess. Yep, they're trading a card for a land. I'm perfectly happy to accept that trade. Pass it back. It also means that our Esper Charm on discard mode is going to be even more powerful here. To be honest, though, I might just want to draw cards with it. I'm greedy. I'm going to go for the card draw. Yeah. If we just hit lands here, then it's kind of but... Cryptic Command, huh? I think we have to fight over this, as it is card advantage for our opponent. Don't necessarily want to cash in the Logic Knot here just yet. There's really no reason not to, though. I guess it's kind of weak to remand if we do. We also can draw cards with Archmage's Charm, so I guess we're cashing the Logic Knot. They have 4, 5, 6, 7 available, so we have to exile 8 cards here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Yep. If they want to remand this, then, like, I guess we can do it again for 5 and just continue to eat away our graveyard. Or they just let it go. I'm totally fine with that. And a Cryptic Command is exactly what we were hoping to hit here. Again, let's just keep doing the thing. Our Colonnade and Tar Pit will get there eventually. Exar. You got it. You got it. We have Archmage's Charm plus Path plus Cryptic, so... This is probably our opponent's best window to Kiki us. Although they did go through Kiki earlier, I guess they discarded it to Esper Charm, perhaps? I don't know. They play land. They probably should have held on to that for future Valakut Awakenings, but if they're going to attack with their Exarch, then I don't really care. It's probably more mana efficient to just go ahead and path now, though, so whatever. Get that out of here. We don't like it. We have another path backup. We have like 3 counterspells. We have all the lands in the world. We will get there eventually. Cryptic counter draw. Let's Cryptic counter bounce Sanctuary, perhaps? Our opponent has one card. If we charm here, then we have Cryptic backup. So let's counter their Cryptic command, I think. Yeah, we'll do this. Snapcaster Mage. Well, we don't have that spell snare around anymore. That's kind of a shame. But this one is an easy Cryptic command target. We still have basic lands to fetch, so we're good on that front. A lot of things happening. Cryptic command, and we'll counter bounce the Sanctuary, so we have access to all the Cryptic commands in the world here. Even if our opponent top decks Kiki, there will no longer be a Deceiver Exarch in play, so we still have a turn to draw this Cryptic command after we put our Sanctuary into play. Not to mention we're protected by Archmage's Charm, so first things first, Sanctuary back this Cryptic command. We'll always yield this one. Yes, of course. And now we can go ham with Colonnade. Just get the maximum beat on. I suppose we actually could go in with Tar Pit too. I like that, I think. We're still protected by Archmage's Charm, so sure, why not? Just attack for maximum damage. This is a 2-turn clock, isn't it? Yeah, I don't think our opponent has a single draw here that actually lets them win the game. I guess they could draw a Cryptic command, and we wouldn't be able to Cryptic back before attacking with the Colonnade, so I think we do have to set up a win over 2 turns here, in which case I'm going to clock with the Colonnade so that if they drew a bolt, then it doesn't prevent us from having our 2-turn clock here, and hold up interaction as much as possible. Probably should have played the Flooded Strand before going to combat, but that's okay. Land, pass it back. We're good on time here, almost equal to our opponent. Okay, and now we can play around Cryptic by getting in with Tar Pit, and if they Cryptic to tap draw, we can use it to activate Colonnade instead. If they bolt our Tar Pit, then we'll counter it, and we have access to double counterspell here, so I don't think that our opponent can really win here. Abrade. Let's counter that with Archmage's Charm, I suppose. Alright, so we got game 1. We do have to play around potential boils here. That's something to note. We want the Disputes, obviously, and the Dispel, obviously. I like Cling to Dust. I like Relic, maybe. Maybe. I like Fatal Push. Not huge fan of Path, although it is unconditional. So you probably need to keep a couple paths for making sure that we have a top deck that doesn't rely on like things like Flooded Strand or Polluted Delta or Field of Ruin in order to kill a Crackling Drake, I think. Verdict is probably not great here, as tapping out to do what Verdict does, not really going to be super effective. Purge, not probably the most important. Gust hits Boil and potential Blood Moons. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go see if I can find a list for this Kiki deck online real quick. 1 second. Okay guys, so I am here with an example list for the Kiki deck that we are playing against. We do see they have a couple Crackling Drakes. This one's not playing all the Deceiver Exarchs that I would expect. I think our opponent is probably playing 4 Deceiver Exarchs, something along that line. I guess our Archmage's Charm also hits, not Archmage's Charm, Aether Gust also hits Valakut Awakening, which is not nothing. At the sideboard, they have Boil for us, they have potential Spell Pierces, Mystical Dispute perhaps, Dispel, Relics. You know, the kind of stuff you would usually expect. I don't think it's common for this deck to play Blood Moon. I can check down here in the sideboard. Yeah, I'm not even seeing Blood Moon show up, so it probably would be against the point of having the mana base that they do. I don't think we probably need to worry about Blood Moon. I'm not certain that Aether Gust is really great here. I guess it does hit Crackling Drake as well, so I'm going to bring in maybe 2. Maybe 2 is a little bit much. Maybe just 1. We'll see how that goes. Actually, you know what? To be honest, Aether Gust, 1 for Boil is something I feel comfortable with. Let's see, Force of Negation doesn't hit their creature threat, which could be important, but it does hit their counterspell, so we can win a counter magic battle pretty easily. We can trim a Cryptic, although I do like Cryptic in this matchup. Logic Knot could be a liability if our opponent has their relics in order. Not sure I want to play around that. Let's see. Maybe this Aether Gust isn't good enough. I don't really see anything else that we want to cut. Trim the Aether Gust, I guess, and a Force. And that's probably good enough. Good enough for me, at least. This is a matchup where we'd really like to have access to a second Spell Snare to deal with Snapcaster Mages. We'll definitely keep this. It has all the lands. It has Cryptic Command to kind of get to the late game, and has Remand to buy us some time. Cling to Dust to interact with Snapcaster Mage so they can't just Snap Bolt us early and clock us hard that way. I mean, we'd still be getting attacked for 2 a turn, which is probably more important than the Bolt itself, but at least Cling to Dust would potentially gain us some life or counter a Lightning Bolt or something like that. So we'll probably lead off on the Colonnade here. I don't really see myself fetch shocking a Watery Grave to Cling to Dust on turn 1. Let's get our tap land out of the way. We will have to fetch a Watery Grave tapped most likely before we cast this Cling, so it's delaying it by 2 turns rather than 1 turn, but I think it's probably fine. Search for Azcanta would be kind of annoying here if they had that. Cleansing Wildfire the Colonnade. That's totally fine. I mean, it will impact us going late, but of course we're getting an island here to fix for Sanctuary and Cryptic Command and all that kind of stuff. Should we shock the Watery Grave just so we can cycle this Cling? I'm not opposed to it. This way we get to hold up Remand and still Cling and not have it delayed our Cling by turn, so like this seems fine. Get Cling out of our hand as early as possible just to get the card value out of it, and then we'll consider doing some value plays with Cling later on. Get this Wildfire out of here. Try to find some more interaction. Archmage's Charm is a good one. Probably be trying to draw some cards with that. Maybe not into our opponent's possible Cryptic Command, though. We'll play a fetch land here to play around Blood Moon, represent Fatal Push, all that good stuff. Pass it back. Yeah, I don't think we're just casting Archmage's Charm to draw 2 into our opponent's open Cryptic mana, so unless they're casting something here. Crackling Drake. This might be the best time to cash in Archmage's Charm to counter something, as our opponent can't like fight back with like a Force Negation here since it is their turn. I'm really tempted to remand this, though, to remand this, because next turn they'll have access to Mystical Dispute to protect this Drake. It really probably is the best turn to Archmage's Charm. I think we just can't pass up the Archmage's Charm value here. I'll just get a basic. I don't see a reason not to. We'll counter this. And we'll go to our turn. Snapcaster Mage is a good one. Fetch would fill our graveyard for Cling to Dust, which is definitely relevant. Let's play out the fetch here. Pass it back. We could also cycle Shark Typhoon for 2. That wouldn't be the worst. We're a little soft to our opponent's Deceiver Exarch combo plan here. Definitely something to note. At least our Shark has flying, so we can clock our opponent, despite if they had a Deceiver Exarch and play to block. We're obviously fetching here. Maybe it was wrong to play out the fetch, so we could have instead gotten Mystic Sanctuary. I guess we could get Sanctuary now. Actually, yeah, let's go for the Sanctuary. We'll get back this Archmage's Charm. We're prepared to draw 2 more cards this upcoming turn with Remand backup, and that allows us to cycle Shark Typhoon now. So, actually, that might have been for the best, in all honesty. Cycle this Typhoon. Get a little 2/2 to clock our opponent. I wonder if they have their Lightning Bolts still in the deck. Of course, they would have sided out things like Abrade. Alright. Island, of course. What do you take me for? Somebody who doesn't play out their islands? I guess we are showing our opponent that we don't have access to Path to Exile here, but we can also just remand to Kiki if they go for that, so yeah. Crackling Drake is good, but I can't say that I really think it's the best threat against us, particularly. Let's draw some cards here, since we are now insulated against Cryptic Command a little bit. We're still playing into Mystical Dispute, which is kind of annoying, but I suppose if they dispute us, we can remand our own Archmage's Charm, so we get to make them discard a card out of the exchange. They're gonna let it go. I'm totally happy to see that. Alright, let's just go to our turn. Fatal Push looking a little awkward without our access to fetch land here, but we'll make do. We have counterspells for days. This is an Esper player's dream to have a hand like this. Look at this. Double Remand, Archmage's Charm, double Cryptic Command with a removal spell and a Snapcaster Mage. What else do you want access to? Like, come on. I don't think we're in the market for hitting this Crackling Drake with our Cling to Dust. I don't know that we want to cast Cling to Dust this turn either. Let's just go for a Snap Archmage's Charm, I suppose. We're 1 mana short of having a remand to back that up, though. Maybe not. We have access to Cryptic plus remand as well, so let's just go ahead and draw some cards again. And now you're seeing why Archmage's Charm is just so good. It does a very impressive Think Twice impression. Alright, land off the top would be great. There we go. I think we shock this in. Take the value. Let us get our Snapcaster into play without just straight up losing it here. And we're hitting all of our land draws, so our opponent is missing theirs, which is something I always enjoyed in Esper. Also, worth noting, we're playing against the second blue-red control deck here in this league. Just too good. Gives us a transfer of redemption, I suppose you might say. Cryptic Command to bounce draw. This is a pretty good time to cash in this dispute, I think. Let's just do that. The later we go, the worse this dispute gets. So let's just say no to that for 1 mana. We still have access to Cryptic plus Remand here, so our opponent has a lot of work to come back into this game. We can't get our Snapcaster into play, though. But I'll tell you what we can do. We can get that Cryptic Command right out of here by using this Cling to Dust to get some value, use our fallow mana, as you might say. And yeah, and still have access to Archmage's Charm for our Snapcaster Mage. Let's hold on, let's rethink how we're casting this. We want to leave the Mystical Dispute and 1 Archmage's Charm, so we have the most varied Snapcaster targets. So here we go. And no, I don't want to hit this Drake and gain 3 life. I want the cards. Draw more cards. Cling to Dust so far has been pretty impressive. I like it. I actually wouldn't mind a Cling to Dust in the main deck or two as a sort of a replacement for Think Twice. And we hit our land, which is exactly what we were hoping to do by casting that Cling to Dust. So, love it. Attack. Man, this 2/2 has been clocking our opponent kind of subtly here. They're now down to almost half their life total. Snapcaster plus the Shark in play is going to be a 3-turn clock, so our opponent needs to deal with what's going on. We got a discard card here, too. Wow, what do we discard? It's probably, as much as it sucks, a Cryptic Command. Although, to be honest, I kind of think we need the Jace in case our opponent can deal with our threats, so we could discard a Remand here. I don't mind that. Remand's very strong against your opponent when they're low on lands, but 5 lands isn't particularly low. Let's just pitch one of these Remands. Cling to Dust, not Cling to Dust. Logic Knot might be consideration for this reason, and also because we're casting Cling to Dust actively, but you know what? That's okay. Relic of Progenitus is not killing us, and we can actually just hard cast Logic Knot here, do it the hard way. Let's get rid of this Mystical Dispute, I suppose. It's less likely to have a target than Remand is, I think, even though it's probably slightly more powerful. We can force our opponent to pop this Relic by casting our Snapcaster Mage as well. I think that's something I'm interested in. Yeah. And if they let us cast this Archmage's Charm, then it's win-win for us all around, so it's not like we're playing into something like Anger of the Gods or Supreme Verdict. I don't think they would have brought in that kind of effect. I suppose we could be playing into Boil, however. That would be pretty embarrassing. But, I mean, we still have Remand and a Logic Knot up for Boil, so I totally would just let the Snapcaster go into play and not cast Archmage's Charm if I felt like it exposed us to Boil. Alright, they're gonna pop the Relic. That is fine with me. You got it. No value for us, except we still got the 2/1, so I guess we technically got a little bit of value. Let's go to combat first and clock our opponent, and then we'll consider whether we want to slam Jace here. If we do, we'll have access to only Cryptic Command for counter magic, and our opponent can just end of turn Deceiver Exarch, Force Negation, back up, untap Kiki, and then we just lose. I guess we don't want that to happen, and we're already winning on board, so we don't need to push our advantage even more with the Jace. We'll just wait for our opponent to deal with what we've got going on already. They're drawing 2 cards with Archmage's Charm. I don't think that will save them, so I'm just going to go ahead and let that go. We could have remanded it, actually. Maybe that would have been strong. Or a Logic Knot for 1, since we don't have a graveyard. That might have been a good use of our mana as well, but we'll figure it out. Alright, down to 4. And this is why Shark Typhoon is so good in this deck, is just having a way to draw a little bit of card advantage here while still being able to clock your opponent. Quite strong. We can let them Archmage's Charm. I think we care more about the bodies in play. Actually, let's remand the flashback Archmage's Charm since it will not go back to their hand. And we'll just push the Snapcaster Mage before it can block. So they can't get our Snapcaster Mage out of play. We still have access to Cryptic plus Archmage's Charm or Remand or Logic Knot or whatever it is that we want to do. To be honest, though, we may just have to let the Archmage's Charm go and not get our value because we need to make sure we're not dying to the Kiki combo this upcoming turn. They could just play Deceiver, untap a land into Kiki, and if they have another land drop, they could even have Mystical Dispute or Dispel for backup, so we probably need to have access to multiple pieces of counter magic this upcoming turn. I don't know, we'll see. Depends on if they tap any mana here. If they want to fight over the Snapcaster Mage, like if they Cryptic our Fatal Push, then we're definitely just like converting a lot of our cards here. While still trying not to lose to Deceiver plus Kiki. I don't know, it's kind of weird though, because I don't want to just lose to the combo out of the blue. They do cast the Charm to draw 2. Oh no, to counter the Fatal Push. Interesting, I didn't consider that. If we remand this, we'll still have access to Cryptic Command plus Fatal Push. So I suppose we can bounce our own thing, like a land, like the Mystic Sanctuary, and then use that to revolt Fatal Push. Or we would have access to 3, 4, 5 Remand plus Archmage's Charm. Or Logic Knot plus Archmage's Charm with 1 card in the graveyard. Awkward. Or we could just lose 1 creature. Or we could just actually cast another Fatal Push here. Push the Snapcaster Mage and have access to Cryptic plus Remand. I think Cryptic plus Remand is going to be the call. So let's just get the Snapcaster Mage. Again. And if they have a Remand or something here, I suppose we're just going to accept the fact that our clock has been reduced to a 3-turn clock yet again. And if all goes completely south... Okay, Remand. What are they targeting? A Fatal Push? I guess we can't cast it this turn, which is kind of annoying. We could Logic Knot this and hold up Archmage's Charm and hope our opponent doesn't have a land. Like, their hand would have to be exactly Kiki, Deceiver, blue land, or just any land, and a Dispel for us to lose to the combo this upcoming turn, and they could have that +1 extra card if they untapped and drew a card per turn. That's a really specific sequence, though. I think I'm inclined to cash in the Logic Knot and lose to that particular scenario. Yeah. Kind of weird to accept that you might lose to something, but I just think it's unlikely enough. You know, our opponent hasn't sculpted their hand with Valakut Awakening, for example. We wasted their Snapcaster Mage entirely, at the cost of a card, I suppose. We have our clock in play. If they deal with one of these creatures and they still have a 2-turn clock to deal with, probably worth it. Opt, okay. Well, this makes it so that they can only have Kiki plus Deceiver and no counter magic backup, so there's the land. Oboro would have been a very good one, if they didn't cast the Opt before. Ooh. Crackling Drake, you say. Let's go for the Remand, and if they fight over it, we can play Jace and minus the bounce their Crackling Drake and then swing for lethal, so. Like, if they Archmage's Charm to force this through, then they're still just dead, so. I guess they could have a Force negation, but. Like, we can actually cast Jace and use Cryptic Command as backup, so. You know. We're just living our best life here. Mystical Dispute. Okay. Okay. Nope. Draw your card. That's cool, that's cool. So if we play Jace and they Remand, then we can Cryptic, but then we get blown out by Force. But then that means they have no cards left. And a Crackling Drake in play. Right? Let's see. They cast a Remand, 2 cards left in hand. We Cryptic, and they force pitching a blue card. Yeah, that leaves them with no cards in hand, so I am fine with that if that is what occurs. I guess we don't want to tap our white mana here, so we can represent, like, Path to Exile or something. Jace minusing to bounce this Drake is kind of bad if our opponent has a Bolt here, since they get to draw another card from the Drake. Kind of awkward. If they have a Bolt, though, I suppose we could just counter that. Weird. We could also zero to see if we can find land plus a removal spell. Like, we could find fetch plus the 3rd Fatal Push, or a Path to Exile in any land that enters untapped. Weird. I think we are kind of committed to this line, so... And if they bolt a creature, then they're not dealing with our Jace with the bolt, so that's probably fine, I guess. Go for lethal, as they say. And the fact that we held on to this Jace for so long, even though we had a board presence and had the advantage, now we're able to use our Jace to convert a intangible advantage into a real advantage, since we are actually clocking them for lethal here, so... Alright, go to combat. Attack with all creatures. Man, it must feel bad for our opponent to commit a bolt or something to one of these creatures and not to our Jace. I'm definitely countering a raw dog Snapcaster Mage, I think. Let's try to win the game. Alright, and it looks like our opponent has F6 here, so that was the match. And I have to say, I personally feel like... Oh, where's the deck list? I have to say, I personally feel like that particular match was very well navigated on my end, and hopefully you agree. Maybe you learned something. I have to admit, I have a lot of experience playing the blue-red tempo/control matchup. I've been playing Esper since Splinter Twin was a legal card in the format. And by the way, I would be more than happy to see Splinter Twin back in the format. I'm one of the proponents of its unban, but I've been playing against our opponent's deck since it had Splinter Twin. And that was, what, 5-6 years ago? I've played a lot of matches. Both as Splinter Twin and as Esper from, like, this type of matchup. So, I think that that definitely can be seen in my gameplay. I tend to be a little worse playing Esper against decks that I'm not super familiar with, and I tend to be very strong playing against matchups where I am familiar. So, especially when new cards like Ren and 6, for example, are printed into the format and kind of make changes to, like, the Jund matchup, for example. Like, that is very difficult for me as an Esper player because I fall into patterns and I try to have a general intuition for what things should be setting off red alarms and, like, for the timing of spells, like, what works out and what doesn't. Like, you can use reason and logic to deal with those scenarios, but I've always tried to lean on intuition in order to make those types of choices, just because if your intuition tells you to make a play and you make that play, that's a lot shorter of a thought process than just, you know, thinking through the entire line all the way down and, like, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Like, those precious seconds can add up when you're playing a control deck. Maybe I don't need to worry about it too much, but I do still occasionally lose to time playing Esper, even though more often than not I feel like our opponents are losing to the chess clock. But regardless, anyways, that's way too much talking. I hope that you enjoyed this match. I certainly did. Blast from the past, sort of. And yeah, maybe I should play the blue-red Kiki deck on my channel at some point in time. Like I said, I played Twin in the past, and I could definitely see that being a possibility. So let me know if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, I'm gonna cut that video there. This is Red Face Menace, signing off.